Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome to what is the name of this? Live with Coach K, the Rebirth Experience, and Charleena Anita. I'm so excited today to bring a very special guest. We've been trying to talk to her. We've actually been talking about this, Charleena, like all year long. But we used to tape on Sundays, and that did not work for our special guest. And it didn't. But Tuesday actually worked so much better for us because it was like locking
Yeah.
up our whole weekend and everything. And so I like the switch. And then we're doing it in the evening. We were drinking on a Sunday morning, okay, at the beginning of the year. It feels much more appropriate to pop my bubbly at 7 p.m. So as you guys know, this show is just a conversation with friends. That's it. But we have an expert in the building today. And so I don't even want to try to introduce her other than to introduce how I know her personally. And then when she introduces herself, even though we're going to be talking about transactional relationships, I want you to feel free to share anything from, the work that you've been doing. So I met Tonya 2016 or something like that.
Hmm.
It's been a minute. We were both
Yeah.
in Eric Thomas's, I want to call it academy, but it was in Breathe University, which was, I
Hmm.
really took that experience for granted. Now that it's over, I feel like I didn't know what I had. And when we met, we had a daily accountability call. But Tonya was the connect in Atlanta to host gatherings and kind of network and bring folks together. And she did such good work with that and has always been very transparent about her challenges post divorce. So anything she may want to share around that, we may even end up talking about that again more specifically. And then also, I have seen her because on her email communications and everything, talks so much about her view on transactional relationships. And so I know this is going to be exciting, but I want you to introduce yourself, Tonya. Share whatever you want. She's a real one, y'all. She's just so wonderful. Such a wonderful.
Thank you so much, Cara. I appreciate it. My name is Tonya Carter. I am from Atlanta, actually, born and raised here. So I am literally a AT alien. um, Mother of two. I have two children, 22 and 18, y'all. So, it's a different season. It hit different. So
Wow.
I um I am a certified divorce specialist. I'm also a family mediator, and I also coach
Mhm.
women to really create their next chapter by design after
Mhm.
divorce.
Mhm.
I still have my 9 to 5. I know Carl said I should be doing this full time, but this is actually, I do that on top of my 9 to 5. I'm a IT administrator, so I've been in the IT world for over 20 years, and I'm just glad to be here. I'm glad we finally connected too. I hate that I couldn't do Sunday, but I made a vow to God that Sunday gonna be mine. Kind of be my Sabbath as much as possible. So had to incorporate that in. But no, I'm glad to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, that is I honor that. I really do, and I'm just so grateful. No, I didn't know. I haven't known. We need to get together in person, okay? And also,
We
I need
really
to get
do.
together with somebody who's actually from here. No, you know
Mhm.
how rare you are. Nobody in Atlanta is from here. And Charlene lived here. How many years did you live here before you moved to Florida?
About 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, close
Oh,
to
so
30.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
she was here for
Yeah.
real here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always say when I hit year 20, I got my peach. I mean, I'm like Atlanta. I feel like I was born here. From
Mhm.
the day I
Hmm.
moved here, I was like, this is where I was supposed to be. I always felt a connection to the city.
Yeah.
It's a little crazy these days. It isn't really a real place. Sometimes that's how it feels,
Oh
but
God.
I love it. You know,
Yeah.
it's changed a lot. Well, I'm going to jump us right in there because Charlena has the most passionate, but I don't want you, Charlena, to start with your view on transactional relationships in marriage. I would love to hear from you first, Tanya. First of all, why are you so passionate about that? And maybe if what is your definition of a transactional relationship?
Well, I was actually pondering on it because I asked you like, well, what are we gonna talk about? You was like, girl, we're just gonna go with the flow. And when I think about transaction, I mean, just in its truest form, it is an exchange. It is a act of giving. I think I personally don't find any wrong in it. I think what happens is more so in your heart posture and how you give, more so than anything. Is it, and that's where I really go with it. Um, One of the things that I do with people that I work with, I mean, we don't technically say the word transactional, but the goal is to really understand why you do what you do. Because a lot of the times we've been maybe conditioned unconsciously to think that we have to perform in order to be loved or liked. It doesn't even have to be in form of intimacy. I mean, in corporate, we perform. When we were younger, we got good grades, we got rewarded, right? So a lot of the time we act out of performing. I mean, even in our relationship with God, for those who are believers, they perform for God when God just wants you as you are because he loves you as you are. So as you can see, performing just becomes an identity, becomes how we function. Um, it's so many ways we can perform. Some people do it out of being loved, some people do it out of manipulation. Let's just be 100%. Like I was thinking earlier about, just for an example, I mean, there are men who may ask a woman out, right? Take her out, but the agenda behind it is to sleep with her. A woman's agenda, this is just an example. This is not all men. Let me put a disclaimer. But you have women who would do anything for the man in order for him to love her, right? They're both performative and the consequences might be different in terms of why you do what you do and who you may hurt. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's still transactional in a sense of believing that if I do this, then what will I get in return? I always tell people to check their heart posture behind anything they do. If it's not genuine, then you may want to, kind of see where your heart is and really dive deep as to understanding why. But I also equally know that everybody doesn't do that and everybody won't do that. And I think that's an issue that we also have to understand too, is that everybody don't lead from pure intentions. So your goal is to observe who you are and what your values are. So that way you can show up on purpose and be intentional about your relationship. So you know how to discern who you need to, what I'm saying, be in that
Mhm.
purposeful relationship with. So I don't technically say transactional. I lead from a place of being purposeful. So anybody who I meet or come in contact with, it's always on purpose.
Well, I
But
want
that
to
came
go
from inner
here.
work. That didn't come, that came from doing the work on myself.
I want to go here real quick because I, I'm stuck on when you said the performance can become an identity.
Mhm.
I I was so struck by that because you're right. From the time we're small children, if you act right, you'll get this. It's so hard not
Mhm.
to do that. In your relationships with your children are transactional. If you're
Mhm.
not doing what you're supposed to do, I'm not going to do what you
Mhm.
need me to do. I
Mhm.
Yeah.
just got a text one of these kids just now asking for something that is unearned, and
Mhm.
so I I I'm just struck by that. And I think religion also can promote a lot of that, even though that's not who God is. We
Mhm.
struggle to understand receiving something that's free, that there's no catch to it, and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. And there's so many directions that could go in. Do you want to jump in, Charlena, before
So, you know, thank you for uh, providing that insight, Tanya. I really appreciate that.
Mhm.
Very enlightening. Going back to childhood, I think yes, our relationships with our parents, with our children, many times they are transactional in terms of, you tell your child do this, then you can get that. I think that, and I like to use, there's two words that I like to use to describe this dynamic. One is transactional, the other is reciprocal. And
Yeah, I like that word. Yeah.
I think that, and the way I differentiate those is by what you talked about, the heart space. Where is your heart? I think as parents, we, because of the way the world is, right? The way, like, talk about a job. The job is extreme. It is transactional. You do this, will compensate you this way. And
Mhm.
so I think that it is important for us to teach that particular dynamic to our children, because it's going to help them to be successful, in the workplace, and, even in just their dealings with other people. I think, though, in our relationships, um, to me, that's where the is the reciprocal relationships can have the greatest impact. And as you stated, I think it's really about where your heart space is. Um, I all relationships are transaction. I'll say it, they're
I
transactional.
am on a live. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
My son is at the door. I thought I was muted. One second.
you're not.
It's always when you doing something, boy. They come in there banging like the police, boy. Bam. I was just hoping. I was like, is somebody okay? Because I mean, they was banging.
I'm sorry, you guys.
That's okay.
Okay.
Girl, you
Thanks,
good.
Laura. We needed that. I needed that. so, so I have talked about how even in my marriage, that
Mm-hmm.
understanding that there's certain things that or you're in a relationship, there are certain things that your partner is expecting for you to do, and in return there are certain things that you receive, um as a result of that. And I don't think that that is necessarily unhealthy. And Tanya, I would love for you to go and delve more into what I define as being transactional relationships, where the heart space isn't really where it should be, and it's truly about someone's doing something just to get something back.
Yeah, Tanya, and I want to hear it too from the perspective of when you used to when I used to get your, I don't know if it's newsletters or then Facebook posts, and you discussed your own post divorce journey. And I don't know, I don't want to push you because I we didn't have any kind of talk about what you wanted to share or not. But you said something about a pattern of transactional relationships, and I would love for you to break that down because you know there are divorced women that listen to us. She and I both have shared our details of our divorce journey, and it feels like, especially if you're on the rebound and it's fresh, you could attract a pattern of that. So if you could just weave that in and share, because I think I need it.
Mhm.
Okay. Which one? Where do I go first with? Just
I
start
probably
talking.
threw too
Okay.
much on. Yeah, sorry.
Um, I would say for me, I always tell people 5 years post my divorce, I saw that I got older, but my life was much the same. In a lot of areas, and one of those areas was relationships. I found myself, you know how you entertain the same type of person, but just a different person. Um, and I saw when I and this came when I really had to do work on myself. I really had to ask myself the hard questions. I had to get radically honest with myself, because externally, if you go on social media in pictures back then, you saw a girl going out having fun, the confidence looked like, through the pictures. It looked, you're smiling all the time. But there was a really deep part of me that felt the need to perform. Right. There was a part of me that felt like if I do more, you will like me and you will see the good in me. That's a very hard truth, right? Because what happens is when you are a high performing person and you are very accomplished, there are times where you might not even want to admit that part about yourself, because that means that there's a part of you that you need to work on. Right. And so for me, that was really important for me to unpack. And I needed to know why. Why did I feel that way?
Mhm.
And it was a lot, it was a few reasons. It wasn't just one reason. It was several reasons. I think one of them was really because there was a part of me that felt like I just wasn't enough as I was.
Mhm.
Like, just who I am as I am wasn't enough. Right. Because again, there was a part of me that probably didn't get the guy that I liked. So when someone liked me, it was like, oh, okay, let me try to show that I'm a good woman. I don't know what it is about this condition that we've been taught as women to just do the absolute most. But I just had to unpack that. I had to get clear. I had to get crystal clear because the stories become the same. Your narrative doesn't change. It doesn't even matter if you're married or not. A lot of people think this is about being divorced. You can be married and be in the same exact type of relationship. This is why I don't technically go with that. Well, you divorced. I will say, as a person who works with divorced women, I hear a lot from married women. So, and I don't, and I'm just saying that just to put it out there, because a lot of this divorce exposes you to be vulnerable. It exposes you to be honest because now you can't hide behind anything. When you're married, you can say, well, I'm married, so I don't have that problem. No, that's not necessarily true. You could be married, but that don't mean you have a thriving marriage. Right? That doesn't mean your marriage is really phenomenal. I'm not telling people to get a divorce. I'm just here to make sure that people don't understand that just because you're divorced, this only applies to divorced people. And so that's why I just wanted to make that, just to put that out there. But honestly, yes, I had to like unpack. I had to do my work. I had to do my work. And it was something that I wanted to do. It was something I needed to do. It wasn't just this area. This was one of many areas that I needed to just look within and say, what's going on? Why am I having things that it just ain't adding right? Why am I saying yes to things that I should be saying no to? Why am I ignoring what I clearly see? Because one thing I know, I'm not an ignorant person. I'm not at all. I'm a very wise person. But what happens is when you are struggling in a specific area, that wisdom may not show up. That confidence may not show up, right? Because of what it comes with. Like when you come with something that you might say, you know what, I don't want to do that. A level of rejection happens with that. So you'll do anything to avoid rejection. And when you don't feel like somebody would just like you for you, all of you, you would do anything to help them change their mind and like you. You follow me? So it's one of those things where you have to be okay with what this exchange comes with when realizing that I'm no longer going to be performative. I'm going to be purposeful. It comes with something. Everything comes with something. And you have to decide what it is that you're willing to live with. And that's what I had to do. And this wasn't an overnight journey. This was, I think I call it evolving, right? Evolving beyond the version where you currently were. And I just think I think it's everlasting. It's a journey that you never get off of. It's just, you just grow and evolve. And so I just been on this journey for over 10 years and I love the woman I become. I've become now and I'm becoming. And it comes with something. You don't do the same things you used to do. You don't want to entertain everybody, right? I don't like, that's a real thing because when you do this kind of work on yourself, you can't afford to lose it, right? And this is why I know the difference between people who do their work versus people who just post it on social media and, kind of maybe portray as if they are. Because when you really unpack your stuff, I promise you, you cannot go back to the old version of you because you will fight to keep this woman that you have become or the man you're becoming into. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Tonya, let me shout out a few of our audience members. I want to say hi to Henley, my sweet camping friend. I also want to
Hey,
say hi
Haley
to,
and Dominique.
Dom as well. Dom has a question in the chat that I'm going to get to. But I want to say this out loud and loud. We've all three been married before. Charleena is now remarried. I am happily single. Tonya, listen, I'm so tired of this narrative that we don't have the same value because we're divorced. Okay. I was with the same person for a very long time. I learned a lot. And just because I chose, some people are living in a failing marriage. I just want to highlight that. You said that. And even though this is not directly what we started off talking about, I'm just tired of hearing it. And I think that we don't
I'm
deserve to
surprised to know
be.
that you're hearing that.
Oh yeah, I don't hear it like direct to me, but I'm saying
Okay.
it's on
About
social
divorced
media. It's like
women.
if you're divorced, then you don't have, what does your opinion matter, or you don't have, did you get remarried, or do you have someone now? It's like if you're not repartnered, that's what basically what I'm saying is
That's
that's
what
what
gives you
proves that you're
value.
success. Yes, that
Okay.
you're more valid. you've been validated, etc., because you were chosen by someone. Listen, myself, Tonya, do you really think if I really wanted somebody in here, the bed is right there. If I really wanted somebody over there, I could have it. Okay, but I
Yes,
don't want, I live in the
exactly.
truth now. I live in the truth. And the truth is I know what I require. I don't even want it right now, but when I do, I know what I require, and I will never again be in a relationship just because I feel like it gives me more credibility. Even at work, when you do the introductions, when someone says they're married, it gives, it's like they're more stable, or, there's all these um, connotations that come along with being married, and it
Mhm.
causes, it actually, I think, promotes the fakeness. And what I learned through my own parents' marriage is a statement that I say all the time: longevity does not always equal
Mhm.
success.
Mhm.
If you made it 40, 50 years, I'm excited for you, but not if it's been miserable and toxic and you've ruined a generation
Mhm.
behind it, and you
Mhm.
lied to your community, and at home there was really abuse and all these other things taking place. So I just wanted to put that out there because I just really I call bullshit on it. I'm sorry, Tanya. We use some French here sometimes, but I just
That's
that's
okay.
all. But I'm going to stop talking because I did take some notes about feeling the need to perform. I think we should pause on that because I can't be the only person that does that. In the first relationship I got in after my divorce, I was performing all the time so that I could be liked, accepted, and all the time I kept thinking, if I do these things, he will then start giving me some of what I want, which was crazy because I'd already tried that for 20 years in the other relationship. Let me put
Mhm.
this on it. Let me do a little bit of this. I would even ask him, okay, how am I doing? I would journal and keep notes of all the things I was doing, hoping that then my needs would get met. And what I learned is people are who they are, and they're not getting ready to do more because you're doing more if they weren't already willing to do. So it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Certain things. I don't know. Let me pull up Dom's question really quick. Can healing truly change your identity, or does it simply make you more aware of who you always were? What do you think, Tanya? By the way, Dom is an old soul. He listen. I would date a guy his age if he had this level of emotionally maturity and awareness.
Hey, Dom.
He's in his
I,
late
I,
30s.
actually, I actually think it's both, right? I mean, I don't, I think it does make you aware of who you always were, but who you always were does involve an identity shift, So I'm not sure if it's one or the other. I think they both work hand in hand. I think it takes courage to be who you really are, in a world that loves to tell you who you should be, right? And I think, and I would just say from personal experience, there was always a part of me that knew. I can't sit here and say that I was so naive where I was just unclear. Some people may be completely unclear, right? But I can definitely say for me that there was always a part of me that felt like I was pretending on certain levels, right? And when in performative can create being a pretender, right?
Yeah.
However, when you're not ready to own it, you'll call it something else. Well, I'm
Mm,
just doing it because I'm just trying to be a nice person. When deep down, that's not it. You're trying to be validated. You're trying to be seen. You're trying to you're performing in hopes that somebody can see you. See, that's that truth that that takes a lot to get to and to own. So to answer your question, I think it's both.
Mhm.
I think
So,
it reveals you, but it reveals you with. So because I feel like in my journey now and in being intentionally single, I'm getting back to myself. And
Hmm.
sometimes in my affirmations, I will say, I call myself back from all places and spaces and time because I feel like that's what I'm doing. So it is bringing me back to myself, but there's more layers now because of my experiences.
Oh, 100%.
and I think that Dom used a very powerful word, the word healing, because I think through the healing process, what you're doing is you're removing those layers, you're removing the hurt, the pain, and all that, all the bullshit that it piled on you that prevented you from being your true authentic self and living in authenticity. So I think that um that yes, it so I don't think so much it changes your identity, but it allows the true you to come to the surface and for you to live, in your truth. So your the healing process is removing all of the layers of the hurt and the dysfunction that really has prevented the real you from really coming to fruition and living.
I think we're going to have to do another episode on healing, like post divorce. I keep thinking I'm healed, and then more stuff comes up. I'm
Well, I
tired.
think it's important to make sure that you're not measuring healing by being 100% whole. And I think
Mm.
when people speak about healing, there's this idea that you've reached this level of wholeness that is complete, like there's no more room for growth. And so
Mhm.
healing might be the beginning, but evolving is really where you want to tap into, because you're going to always find yourself becoming.
And
It's
it's
going
a
to be certain things
process.
that you don't need to unpack in certain seasons. It may not
Mhm.
be ready for you to unpack right now. And so, but when you start this journey, you become very, very obsessed with improvement, right? Where you're always going to be maybe moving from a place of self-awareness. You're going to
Mhm.
find maybe things that you didn't find 5 years ago that you're like, wow, I didn't even put two and two together. And so I just think
Mhm.
it's very important, because healing has become a word that's been used a lot. And it's not wrong. It's just that I just really hope that my hope is for people to not take healing as this destination,
Action.
as
But it's
opposed
a
to seeing it
journey.
as a journey,
Journey
an evolving journey,
and a process.
right? I mean, it's things that certain things revealed to me now that didn't reveal to me 10 years ago. It
Mhm.
wasn't, I wasn't ready for that. That
Ready.
that
Right.
wasn't what God needed to show me in that
Mhm.
season. But it's certain things that I'm like, man, I didn't know that. Doesn't mean I'm healing. I guess we can say that, but I call it evolving right now in my life. So I'm always in this space of growth. So and all this, you got to be so whole 100% because you're girl, you know what, again, it's these conversations that I have to really talk to women about, because or anybody, men for that matter, to think that you always got to be in this space of fixing yourself.
Mm.
Like
I,
that's we that like I only had the words for it, but
man.
no, you don't always supposed to be fixing yourself. And so these messages that are always saying why you're single, why you're not all these different things, and you got people, it's a it gives people an emotional reaction, especially if you
Mhm.
are a person who feels like who you are is in, aligns, or I would say who you are is based on your relationship status. Like if you move and function like that, when someone's
Mhm.
telling you why you're single, that's going to trigger you. You're going to keep thinking, I just got to keep working on myself. I got to keep working on myself. You should want to work on yourself because you just owe that to yourself. That's just your birthright. But if your heart posture is to always feel like you got to fix yourself in order for someone to love you, that's the motive we got to change. It's the motive behind the healing that I think people have to understand. Why do you want to heal?
Mm.
Now, the reason might be because I find myself entertained in the same relationships. That may be a start. But I can
Mhm.
promise you, if you're working with a coach, most likely it is deeper than that. Most of my clients say, half of the stuff we talk about ain't even about divorce, Coach Tonya. I'm like, it's not.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Divorce may
Mhm.
be the experience that led you here,
Mhm.
but focusing on divorce for what?
Mhm.
It's going to take away from you focusing on you. So I just encourage people to be mindful on how they approach healing. I really do. And
Mm.
so I just wanted to
Mhm.
say that to you, Carl, because
Mhm.
I heard what you said. He was like, "Man, maybe I just need to do more work." I'm not telling you not to. I think you owe it to
Mhm.
yourself to always evolve and grow. But sometimes when divorce can bring this negative connotation that something's wrong with you, you might just be on this hunt of constantly fixing yourself, fixing yourself, fixing yourself. And not and people don't understand the way breakdowns work in terms of why people get a divorce. Divorce is not an overnight decision. I tell anybody that, right?
Hmm.
Divorce is one of those things
That's
that
interesting you say that.
compounds over time. And what I always want to get people to understand
Mhm.
is that nobody gets married to get a divorce. That's never, I haven't. I would say in
Yes.
my professional
Amen.
experience and even
Amen.
in a personal experience, I've never met anybody who gets married to get a divorce. Everybody goes
Hmm.
in with wanting it to work. But let me tell you
Hmm.
something, this timeline of life has experiences, and you do not know how the extent of how somebody can be when these things happen. Job loss, you lose money, death, right? You don't know what people turn to.
Well,
You
I
can,
want to say that I think we don't know how long forever is. That's what
yeah,
I
you can look right. You can, for
Or
real, you
nor what
can
it
look.
looks like, what it
Yes,
all
I for
entails.
me, I was not excited about getting married. I was
Yeah.
not looking forward. And this that's a whole nother episode.
Mhm.
But I do remember just thinking I can do this. I was 35, and so and I did not think about how long I would be doing that the way that it was. So
Yeah.
but I just agree so much. And listen, what's your cash app? Because I feel like you came on here for me and what you just said. You
So
know,
crazy.
again, we met in a personal development group, right? And
Mhm.
I'm at a place where I don't even think, not I don't think, I would never want to date someone who didn't want to do any form of personal development. Like just this
Correct.
is where
I
I'm
agree.
at, and they just never. Because one thing about the community that we were in, you guys, is we were constantly striving to be better the next day, and it was so much positive groupthink in that environment. But what I have found lately, Tonya, is that I think that my obsession with improving myself, not to get a man, just to be, you know what I kept, what I was thinking about, I don't want to make any of my past mistakes, so let me be more perfect so that I never do all of these whatever my sum total of bad decisions and negative self-talk was. And it drove me straight into depression, just obsessed. Every time something would go wrong, it could be a friendship, it could be something at work, and now I'm in trouble. Every time I didn't do it perfect, or and I'm still very much so struggling with this, I would attack myself. And then it drove me to a place of exhaustion. Like I told my best friend, I'm just constantly working on myself, I'm drained, when am I going to get this right? And you already freed me in a way when you said it's an evolution. And so I'm going to incorporate that into my thinking and stop thinking about healing in the same way, or just this constant need to be perfect and keep improving myself in those ways, because you can go too far with it, and it can become very harmful.
Right. So there's an extreme, right? Everybody go, you got to have some middle ground when it comes to doing this work. And I think what comes with evolution is also being able to give yourself grace. Grace is something that I really encourage my clients to give themselves. I need grace. Okay. Like grace is this is unearned favor, right? You cannot earn grace, which is why I always go back to we always function on being performative, because many of us think we got to perform in order to give grace, to get grace. Grace is not a performative act. It is undeserved, unearned. It's not something that you can work for. It's something that's freely given to you. I do think with grace, we always want to, I always kind of function from a place of self assessing. But one thing I do my best to try to make sure that I don't do is be overly accountable for something that isn't in my control. Right. And also making sure I'm not being under accountable for what is. And that's very important because we hear accountability, accountability. However, you can be overly accountable. That is a real thing. It's like you're taking on things that is not for you to take on. That wasn't your job. It
Exactly.
wasn't your responsibility.
Exactly.
And you need to release that weight of thinking that you can control that and you can't. And that's something that it's a conscious effort to practice that. But when you, again, it's repetition like anything else. And when you constantly do it, it just becomes a part of your lifestyle.
And I think I've said that to you before, Charlene. I'm somebody has said to me, people talk to me here and there about take accountability. I always think I'm the problem, and I don't think
Yeah,
that
you have.
there are a lot of
You've
people who
shared that
aren't
a
like
lot.
that. I've said that a lot. So because like even way back early in my career, somebody complimented me. I was at a big corporate gathering and they were like, "Oh, Cara was responsible for the such and such." And I immediately pointed out the thing that went wrong. Well, I didn't do this part to an executive at a big gathering. I was like, okay, instead of me just saying thank you so much, I look forward to this, whatever. I'm used to being the problem. And so in the marriage, when I was told I was the problem, I had already made that agreement with myself that I am the
Yeah.
problem.
An
And
unconscious
so
agreement.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
that is just so powerful. And Dom has another question here I want us to go to. Um, but I wanted to share for everyone that one of my spiritual mothers says constantly, be gentle with yourself.
Yeah. Because I'm
And
sure if
I,
your friend came to you, you would probably be like, girl,
you know,
you know?
I know, but it's just be gentle with, but I'm telling you,
Mhm.
that programming is deep. When you are told
Yeah,
you
it
are the
is.
problem, then you begin to, and then other people will know that and they will pile on and feed that same narrative. And then you
Mhm.
begin to think you're the problem. Then I'm telling myself, is everybody else working this hard on themselves? Is it just me? And now I feel like I was looking at the wrong people who it wouldn't have mattered what I did. Either they had
Yeah.
me in a certain box, that's how they view me, and they're
Mhm.
never going to let me out. It doesn't matter what I do, what I shower them with, and then you end up doing all this overperforming. Like we may talk about romantic relationships, but like we heard, when you how you do one thing is how you do everything. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking, and I never saw the string in my life, but you'll do it with your children. You'll overperform for them. You'll overperform at work. You'll overperform it in your relationships and your friendships. You're running around setting yourself on fire to take care of everybody. Then you're mad. Like we're talking about transactions, right? It's not coming back to you sometimes. And so it just leads to a mountain of stress. Pull this up here. How difficult is it being purposeful when you are being and dealing with people, work, etc., and the people you're dealing with aren't as purposeful as you? How would you navigate that?
Is that a question for me,
Well, Charlena, you
or
haven't
is that
spoken in a
something
while
you
because
want
I've
me
been
to
doing a lot of
answer? Or
talking. You want to say you want
yeah,
to jump
Okay.
on
I
that
was go. I
before
didn't want to.
Tanya?
I didn't want to bulldoze. You know.
No,
No, no, no. But let me
no.
tell you, I'm going to shut up in a little bit because Tanya, if I just really let her go, it's a sermon and she drops so many diamonds. And so I have got to be quiet because there's already been some diamonds, but I want to let them breathe a little bit. So, but go ahead, Charlena. What do you think?
Oh, I mean, wow, that is a very deep. How difficult is it being That's well, Dom. Wish that you were on here because I would love to ask you how difficult is it for you um, when you're dealing with people at work or wherever, and they aren't as purposeful as you. How do you navigate? I can't answer that question. I'm going to default to Tanya.
Okay. So when you're dealing with people who may not be as purposeful as you, right? Because I actually think that's a good question. Okay, because we know that when you're at work, you may have to, you know, converse with people who you may not technically be fond of. I think this is where your discernment and wisdom has to really show up. And I think you always need to lead with that. So, what I mean by that is being purposeful is not saying that everybody gets VIP access to you, right? Being purposeful is also understanding the nature of this relationship and how to navigate it accordingly. And that's something that Dominique is responsible for, because you're still being in purpose. It's just realizing that, hey, I know that my boss can be a difficult person, right? It's is now understanding, how do I navigate this complex relationship, right? And that's important to know. Now, when I say complex, now when somebody's just flat out nasty and rude, I'm not referring to that. I'm not referring to people who are just maybe very manipulative to you. That may be a job switch, to be quite frank. That may be a conversation in HR. Because what I don't want people to think is that being purposeful means that I got to be this person in values and I can just let somebody treat me any kind of way. That's not it. It's understanding who that person is by observing them, not by judging them, and then by respectfully positioning them where they belong in your life.
But Tonya, what about that
Mhm.
common phrase people love to say, I match energy? I have a
Yeah,
real reaction
I
to
don't
that,
do, you know what? I get
you
it,
know.
right?
Because some people
I
get
get
petty.
it,
It's like
but I
if you're gonna
just
be petty with me, if you're gonna be difficult with me, I'm gonna be difficult with you.
I get it. I get why people do it. I don't have the energy to give you the energy you give me if that energy ain't the energy I give. I rather just de-escalate and just go on about my business, right? I know how to kindly remove myself out of situations. I understand when certain things don't need to be said over the phone, maybe through email. Like I've had to learn how to show up. That was the ownership that I had. Now, let's be clear, if someone is out of pocket, my assertiveness definitely kicks in because I'm a very firm person, right? So I don't want anybody to think
I'm scared of
this
her,
is,
y'all. She never knew
yeah,
that. I'm
I
a
don't
little
want y'all
scared
to
of you.
think, just no, because sometimes this is where the fine line draws, right? It's like, well, if I'm being purposeful, how do I deal with maybe people who can be a little bit more complicated and I wouldn't even call it complex, but I would call it probably complicated, difficult, maybe challenging, so to speak. This is where you have to. I think what's important, what helped me is understanding my communication style. That was one of the biggest things that was a game changer for me. And what that meant was I needed to know how I communicate, but most importantly, I also need to understand how others needed to be communicated to. That was important for me because in order to build purposeful relationships, no matter how that person is, I feel like my responsibility lies in knowing how to communicate. Now, if I feel like that, if I get this, if I'm observant and I know this ain't gonna go no further than what it is, I'm very well okay with that. See, everybody's not going to be as purposeful as you. And I think this is the part when people that have they're deep in their character, they're very integral. Sometimes the problem is that you automatically think everybody functions the way you do and they don't. And that's
Mm.
something that you cannot control. What I highly recommend is for you not to match their energy because now you're operating out of being inauthentic,
Assertively.
right? So the goal here is to observe. The goal is to say, where does this person belong? Respectfully. I don't
Hmm.
think everybody needs VIP access to you. I don't. And I think we need to understand the importance of having some healthy boundaries around the relationships we hold. Understanding why do we even want to be in relationship with this person? And also not mislabeling somebody as a friend. Like just
Hmm.
because you have a relationship with them doesn't technically mean that you're your friend. They may be an associate. They may be an acquaintance. They just may be a coworker and nothing more. And that's okay. But when we
Hmm.
start calling everybody besties and all that, it's like when you start attaching labels or mislabeling people in terms of where they belong in your life, that can set you up for disappointment as well.
Hmm.
So I will
I,
always say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no,
Mhm.
go ahead. Mm-mm.
No, I was just going to say, always be purposeful. Don't ever feel like you have to stop being who you are. Like if you feel like that you have to always adapt, where you feel like you can't just never be yourself to say for the sake of the relationship, you may want to reposition that relationship
Hmm. Hmm.
or
I
even
think you have
ask
to know who
why do
you
you
are.
feel that way. Correct.
Well, and I
It
think you
all
have to
goes back into
stand in
that.
who you are. I remember I worked in
100%.
2015. I was in a very toxic work environment, and so many people there were negative. They hated working there, but that job saved me. So I had to make an intentional choice to say, I'm going to come in with joy every day anyway. What you're doing and the fact that you're not passionate about your job or whatever is happening in your life, that don't have nothing to do with me.
Hmm.
It doesn't have anything to do with me. And because people can take you out of your character and we can absorb things from other people. I mean, especially in like a work environment, if you work in person and you're there every day, and there's always these little pockets of people in the office, and there was like the caddy group there, and they're super messy, they have no good intentions at all, and they love to add other mean girls or guys to their clubs. They can sit around and talk about everybody, but you can choose to say, I don't want to be a part of that. I'm going to
Correct.
stay true to who I am, my
Right.
character, my goals, my dreams,
Yeah.
my aspirations, and be who I am. Now, I think that when you're talking about an interpersonal romantic relationship, I don't even think those can be in the same conversation,
No,
because you are with that person all the time. You're in their energy field all the time. They
correct.
in yours. And if, I don't know how strong your light is, but that darkness can take over. But in the workplace, anybody that you don't live with, that's not in your immediate environment, it shouldn't have any impact on you at all. Now, you may have to do more to keep yourself fortified before you go into that environment,
Hmm.
but it is easier for you to protect yourself and be true to yourself and who you are. And if they want to say that you are, brown nosing, or you're a kiss up or whatever, it shouldn't even, you got to get to a place where it just, you don't even know that they said it because you're immune. That's what.
Exactly. And I think that's good that you said that, because sometimes we internalize how somebody is as if we did something to them, right? For instance, one of my old somebody at my job, they don't work there anymore. He was a very aloof person. I will say that he didn't speak. I will say he was consistent. He didn't speak to nobody. And people always
Mhm.
ask me like, "Well, why he didn't speak?" And I'm like, I don't know. He
Doesn't
don't
want
he don't
to.
speak to me, right? However, when I sat down and I had a conversation with him, and some of the things that he opened up to me about just in conversation, it made sense a little bit, right? And what that meant was it gave understanding as to maybe his approach was just the way it was. It wasn't personal, right? And I think a lot of the time we internalize someone else's response and we make it be about us. Like, what did I do? Nothing. You know what I mean? Like, stop, be mindful of what you carry on your sleeve. Um, and I think that's important. It's a lot of different things, but I think it's important to define what relationship we're talking about. But I'm in agreement
Hmm.
with you. But when you are in close proximity with someone, when you are in a partnership with someone, you might not want to navigate again, because that's a different relationship. So again, that person has
You know,
VIP access to you. So you want a different kind of shared responsibility between the both of you.
right. Tanya, I was going to interject that I think it really depends on the type of relationship. When it comes to the workplace, those we don't have a choice. We really truly don't have a choice in terms of who we're working with, who they are, how they present. What we have a choice is how we're going to show up and how we're going to interact with them. And that's pretty much what was said. But I think in our personal relationships, so in work, I can't hold another person responsible. They have really, I can't hold them accountable, outside of them disrespecting me or anything like that, but I can't hold them responsible. We just are people who work together. But when it's in a personal relationship, somebody that you choose to be in this relationship with and they're choosing, then I think that we have a greater, we hold a greater amount of leverage in terms of holding them accountable about how they relate to us in the relationship and what their responsibility is in the relationship. If we feel that they are not, being purposeful or not, they are not operating with intention, we can call them on that. We can talk about, we have more leverage to help guide the relationship and move the relationship to the place where we want it to be. And so I think in those personal relationships, that's when it boils down to communication and us communicating with our partner or friend or whomever it is, and talk about the quality of relationship, what our expectation is, and what it is that we desire.
But Dom used big words. He said purposeful, right? But it
Mhm.
really means anything. Anything that, if you're driven, you're ambitious, you're focused, whatever, and you're dealing with people who aren't on that same wavelength, you're running your own race. We have to get to a place where we don't even look at them. If it's their choice to, and they want to show up a certain way, that's on them.
But I think that's, I mean, yeah, we can say that in the workplace, but when the
Well,
people that
yeah.
are, personal in your personal, let's say it's your partner, it's the person you're dating, or let's say it's even your child. I mean, the relationships that are outside of work,
Yeah.
I think we have more leverage, we have more power in terms of voicing what it is that we desire and what it is that we expect, and we just have more influence in getting to the place where we want the relationship to be, and we have the power to not be in the relationship in some cases. So I
Because
think
the
we have
partner
a
may not want to do that though, Charlena. That's because I'm a leaver now. If you're not trying to, if you're not, I would just leave. But what I'm saying is, your partner may not be willing to do that. So that's where it gets more complicated.
Mhm,
If you
mhm,
are very driven or you have certain values, I think I like to use that word, and you are
mhm,
partnered with someone, or even I know we said partner, but even if you just have close friends, like people that
mhm.
you're with a lot, and you're on one path and they're on another. I guess how you navigate that is you have a conversation and then you
And
decide,
then you
to
have to make a
Tanya's point, do
choice.
they need the same VIP status?
Right. You have to make a choice, because that's, to me, that's the beauty, is you have a choice of how you want to handle that. Do I really want this person to be in my life on period, or do I want them to be in my life on this level? Just as you said, Tanya, maybe that person doesn't get to have the VIP status in your life anymore because they are not conducting themselves in the relationship in a way that allows them to have that. The privies gives them privilege to have that. So, I think a lot in our personal relationships outside of work, we have a lot more power to determine what we want that relationship to be and how we're going to handle ourselves if it isn't giving us what we feel we truly need.
I also want to kind of add to that too. Um, Though I would also just, and I don't know if this is where Dominique was going, but one of the things what's really important is the motive behind everything. If your
Hmm.
story is always thinking that nobody around you is purposeful and you're the only purposeful one, then we have to evaluate that common denominator, right? We have to see, why are we a magnet to those relationships? And that's
Mm.
very, very important to observe too. And the reason why that matters is because you can cut all these people off, but you're still just going to be a magnet for more people who still act that way. And
Right.
and I'm not, and I know this is hard because this is where the self-awareness comes in. This is where the ownership comes in. I mean, if people are draining you, I don't care if you're in the workplace. Like, I don't mean no disrespect. I understand when you're in the workplace, you only have so much control. You're not the
Mhm,
CEO.
mhm.
However, even in the workplace, I think it's important to make sure that just because you're working for someone, that you're not being mistreated and you don't have a say so. I'm a little, I kind of push back on things like that. And the reason why that matters is because I believe in being who you are no matter where you are. And
Okay.
that's very important. And that was important for me, right? Because, and the reason why this matters is because you don't realize how much bondage you're in. So when I say I had to do this inner work, it wasn't just from a romantic relational perspective. It was also in the marketplace as a woman and as a Black woman in tech, right? I had to have a conversation with myself, right? And what that meant, and the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is that one of the things that I do challenge my clients to do is understanding their dysfunction. You got to see where it is. Even if you're overly giving, that's a problem. You can be the person where I just go with the flow. That might be a problem, especially when it's hurting you. And so I guess I just want to make sure that if that's always your story, because I hear people say that all the time, like, I'm just tired of people taking advantage of me, doing me wrong. I think we need to do an audit.
Hmm.
And if that is your constant pattern, then we might need to now turn that inward and say,
Hmm.
okay, what am I giving? What am I believing about myself to think that these are only the relationships that I can have? And I just think that's an important thing, because I work with mostly women, but most women fall under the rescuing category.
Mm.
They're rescuers.
Unpack that. Unpack that.
They're enablers. They feel the need to fix, but they have an underlying resentment in doing it. So it's not that they're doing
Mm.
it again. the posture, which is why I say transactional. I We got to go performative and purposeful. See, performative, that's what rescuers do. See, I'm helping you. See, I'm doing this for you. Oh, they need my help. But then what ends up happening is that all you do is give, all you do is serve. But then deep down, you have a resentment because you're neglecting yourself, and you really don't like it. But for some reason, you're in a triangle. You're like in that drama of always being the fixer. You have to break out of that. And that's a you issue. Because what happens is you can leave that relationship, but you're going to go right back into being a rescuer. You're going to go right back into enabling somebody else.
Help us, Lord.
Only to be the victim again, only to feel like people are doing you wrong. That's your same story. So what you do, that don't work. You go to somebody else and you do the same thing. You see that person, you see a need, and you feel the need to feel that need all the time. As opposed to being a more supportive person, you overly serve. But you've been taught that that's selfish, that's selfless. And so we got to unpack that, right? I had a client, I'm working with her now, and she was taught culturally, which I think a lot of women do, but a lot of, being selfish, like, is wrong. Like, you should never think about yourself. So getting her to finally consider herself is probably one of the hardest things to do, because it comes with guilt. Because you've been told your whole life that you should never consider yourself. You always need to consider others. Now, does that mean to go the extreme and not give to other people? Of course not. And that's the issue that people do. They just stop giving altogether. I'm like, well, no, we just got to check our heart posture and why we do what we do. What's our motive?
But see, that's the thing. Oh my goodness, you just gave us a lot here, and I didn't write any of it down. That was so good. Because I just want to say that for anybody listening, I really want you to look within and look at your life and see how the thread goes through everything. It's not just in your romantic relationships. That may be mostly where you're looking for whatever reason. But if you're overgiving over there, you're overgiving in a lot of areas. And then you're resentful if it's not coming back to you in the way you desire. And sometimes people giving stuff that nobody even asked for. Okay.
Right. Like,
And
you have an expectation that nobody knows about but you. Like, you have it in your head how this is going to turn out, but they don't know. And
that
now,
was in this 40-day guide I was reading, was saying that you're disappointed because of whatever your intention was going into it. Your intention wasn't met when you went in. You didn't even state what you wanted, but you didn't get it. And then you're disappointed because of what you gave. And what I was doing is doing the things thinking that it was going to be noticed and you would feel grateful. And then you would come and do these things for me, even in not even in just with friends. I would be the one to organize things and set things up, and then I'd be mad that nobody else was ever planning. Well, I just made a decision to say I ain't coordinating nothing. Okay. If you want a season of rest, let me tell you, you have to make it for yourself. It's for you. It's like we want other people to treat us better than we treat us. Instead of me giving myself rest, I was waiting on everybody else to notice how tired I was and then give me the rest. But the problem is, when you sit down, if anybody is suffering with this as bad as I was, then you feel guilty that you're not doing stuff because you're so used to running around
and
doing all
here's
the
another
things.
kicker too. Someone could actually offer help and you reject it. It's so many different
Oh,
ways to this,
yes.
because
And why do you reject
when
it?
you are very maybe hyper independent, because I always like to tell people being independent is not an issue, but when you're hyper independent, it could be it could just be bad for you and everybody involved, because even when someone's extending help, you can't even receive the help that's being given to you. And so it's so many different like ways we can go about this thing, but I think what it all goes back to is self.
Worth.
You know what I
So, and
mean?
let me add on worth. What are
Yeah.
you worth? And I feel like that is, if somebody took that and sat with it and asked themselves, what am I worth? They would uncover a lot there, because it took me a long time to realize I really didn't think I was worth very much at all. I was so focused on every mistake, and there's just so much work that you can do internally when you get your worth up. you can express it. Let me say this, Tanya. I know we're going to run out of time, but I want to make this point. There are
No,
people
you're good.
who will purport about their worth. They don't really have that confidence. They puff up about it, but they don't really think they're really worth that. So they're kind of faking it, because I feel like when you get your self-worth up to a certain place, you're not walking around with negativity and an attitude. That's not what it looks like when you have
No.
self-worth. You're not toxic on other
Mhm,
people. You're
mhm,
not
Mm,
mistreating other people. You can move with the spirit of love,
mhm.
because you
hmm
realize, guess what? I don't just think I'm worth it. I think you're worth it
And
too.
see, that's the thing. And that is the key right there. When people think the opposite of, well, I'm not going to do nothing for nobody no more, that's not the fix. Even cancel culture, I know that people might not
Mhm,
like that, but that's not
mhm,
really the fix.
mhm.
Right. And
It's
so,
true.
again, it's one of those things of really understanding what your motive is, understanding where your heart posture is right now. And that's really only something you can be honest about. Like, I can discern very well and observe where someone's heart posture is. I'm not psychic. I just think I have a gift for discernment. However, you can't, you know what I'm saying, work on anything you're not willing to admit. It takes a level of
You can't change what
surrendering.
you don't acknowledge. Dr.
Yeah,
Phil
it
said
takes a
that.
level of humbleness and surrendering to be like, you know what? I'm struggling. And this ain't even something you gotta post on social media, because everybody
Mhm.
feels like they gotta go on social media. I'm like, listen, y'all, when you're trying to work through some real stuff, that's the last place you want to post. And I said, I'm not saying that to be funny. It's just that the climate can be very interesting. And when you're really trying to peel back some things,
It's
you
very
might want to
personal. It's just very
very healing is
personal.
very personal, Charlena. And I realized it really is. Like, when I first started, I took a hiatus. This was 10 years ago, just so I can get clarity.
Mhm.
Um, and now we're talking a decade later. I mean, the energy is very intense online. And when you're trying to really seek clarity, that isn't technically the space or place I recommend you going to. But yes, I just wanted to add that your heart posture is everything, because I didn't want to be a cold person. I didn't want to be the
Mhm.
opposite of what my parents taught me, to be a woman of my word, to function in integrity. Like, my parents taught me that. School don't teach you that. My parents taught me that. And I mean, the worst thing I wanted to do is be someone I'm not. You know what I mean? So yeah. So I get it.
Listen, I want us to land the plane with some um, solutions, and here are mine. I want you guys to think of like your top takeaways for. Let me frame this up for the person who struggles setting boundaries. We do have an episode on that, you guys. I need to reshare it because it was fire. It was a long time ago, but it was fire. The person who struggles setting boundaries. I want you guys to speak to the person with the giving spirit who's been taken advantage of, and what they can do moving forward to not, because this is a gift that you have, being a giver, and you don't want, if you stop giving, you're not going to feel good about that either, trust me. But give some suggestions. My top two would be, one thing I realized lately, I've been insulating myself a lot more than I should. I realize I'm a giver, but I've been giving to the wrong people. So
Mhm.
I want to find some people and ask the Holy Spirit to show me people who need what I have to offer, who will appreciate it, which ties in with my top 2 points. Trust your spirit, and know your intentions. That's what has guided me, because before, what'll happen is, y'all, when you're the giver and you're tired of being taken advantage of and you're angry or whatever, you'll just close up completely. Just shut down, just go into total shutdown mode with anger, resentment, etc. But once I realized, I just need to learn how to trust myself, and trust that if I'm supposed to give to Tanya, it's all good, And if, let's say, I give some to Tanya and she stank and takes it away, I'm not going to say, oh, I shouldn't have given her anything. Maybe God had another intention for that. If I
Yep.
did a self check first, then I'm not going to worry about it as much when I give. But if I shut myself off as a giver, I'm going to be in worse shape. And so I wanted to get some final reflections from each one of you. I don't know who wants to go first. What advice would you have for the giver that feels drained, or everything they're doing is transactional and they don't know how to get to a place of more natural reciprocity? What, anything along those lines?
So I'll speak.
Charlena?
I'll speak on that because I think, Kara, you would describe me as a giver. I think that I am. I've been described as a giver. I enjoy giving. Um, so there's nothing wrong with being a giver.
Right.
And I think that for people who struggle with feeling that they're giving too much, they give to the wrong people. I think that there are people out there who balance being a giver with the right boundaries. And you may have those people in your life. You may see people who are giving from a place of joy without regret. And if you have those people in your life, then it doesn't hurt to ask that question. Like, you seem like a person who is very giving. How do you not burn yourself out? How do you know who to give to? How do you continue to give and feel like you're not being taken advantage of? How are you able to do that? Because it can exist. You can give and be authentically who you are, loving, giving of yourself, and not be taken advantage of. Those two things do exist. And I think if you find that you are being taken advantage of, I think it's because there's something that you are attaching that giving to is that isn't in the most healthy or evolved place. I'm taking that word from you, Tanya. That's you're not in the most evolved place. And so, we talked about, doing work and I think that when we find ourselves in a place where we feel like there's some sort of deficit. If you feel like you're a person that's giving, but um you don't feel good in your heart about it, you feel like you're being taken advantage of that is that's to me that's that's your heart letting you know there's some work that I have to do in this area. I mean,
Mm.
the
There,
areas where we need to
yes.
grow, they reveal themselves to us. And it's
Hmm.
up to us to decide, am I going to listen to my heart telling me that I need to do some work in this area or not? And so what you're experiencing is your heart trying to tell you, because your heart really wants you to be in the best space.
Yeah.
It's just you have to decide, do I want to look at it and am I willing to do the work? It's not easy. Tanya talked about her journey. My journey was a 10-year journey. I
Hmm.
remember exactly when it started. And it took me 10 years, to work through a lot of stuff. But as difficult as it was one of the most, probably one of the best gifts that I have ever given to myself. And I think when you are in that space, when you've done that work, it makes you a better person, not just for you, but for the people who love you as well. So I'm going
No,
to with
that's
that.
good.
And I paraphrased what you said, by the way, Charlena, but that was wonderful. That I love that. Listen, your heart is telling you. We've not been trained to listen to our hearts, our
Yeah.
spirit, intuition, none of
The
that.
heart never
Time,
lies.
it
Never.
never
It
lies.
never lies. That's
What you got,
good.
Coach Tanya?
Wrap it
Um,
up for us. Wrap it up for
yeah.
us.
Yes,
Put it in a bow.
I wanted her to land this plane. Listen,
You're so
Yes.
listen, Tanya.
crazy.
Before you share this,
Mhm.
take your time.
Bravo.
Cara,
We
you're
have
so
nothing
funny.
Bravo.
else. No, listen. I've been on
Cara
some
said we have
call.
nothing else to do.
We have nothing else to talk about. I want you to really think about, we have some people on here. Sometimes me and Charlene just be on here talking to ourselves, okay? but we,
That's okay. You know what?
but and we
I
like it.
blocked the
We
whole
don't even
evening.
care, do we, Charlene? We do not care.
It's
Clearly,
okay.
we're not attention seekers. I don't do a great job promoting this or anything. But listen, I I want you to land the plane for the giver that is burned out, or for the person who has just been raked over the coals and is debating, they're like in shutdown mode, don't want to
Yeah.
let people in at all. There's no self-trust. There's no, there that maybe the connection to the divine or whatever, the God of their understanding, all that stuff is jumbled up. What are some takeaways that they now, and then I want you to how can they pay you for something, and then we'll talk to you more. We're definitely going to close with that. But what are some takeaways that they can do starting, tonight or tomorrow, to try to turn this tide? Because I just don't want to see the givers, um, just go away and shut themselves down and not use their gifts.
Okay. I would say this: love without boundaries is a liability, right? And I think that's important, right? Because I saw a post or somebody left a comment and said something about they like to give and serve, but sometimes they may have trouble of understanding who deserves their love. When I think of love, love is a necessity, meaning that as humans, we all should be loved. I think that's a basic human need. I think
Mhm.
the issue is that when we confuse love in terms of, we forget to say, okay, even though I can love this person because as a human, they deserve love, what level of access do they need in my life? And I think a lot of the time, love and access gets very confused. Okay. And I say that because, and I think this can go with
Mhm.
anybody,
Mhm.
right? Like you can have a sibling that you love, but loaning them money, you're not going to get it back. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not because you don't love them. You just know based on their pattern, based on their behavior, you're not going to get that money back. So either you're going to loan them, you're going to give them the money and not and expect not and know you're not going to get anything back, or you're going to loan it to them and be mad that you did because of
Mhm.
something you already knew.
Mhm.
So I'm saying all that to say we got to know what a boundary is. Okay. So a boundary is your guideline, right? On what is acceptable for you mentally, emotionally, physically, even spiritually. Because spiritual abuse is a real thing. And many people think that, whoever you serve, me, I'm a believer. People think Jesus doesn't have boundaries. I don't know what Bible they read, but boundaries are everywhere. But there it's a guideline for you specifically. And so it's important to understand that, because what happens is we think boundaries are bricks, we make them be walls. And according to Henry Cloud, it is a fence, it is a gate where you can let people in and you can also respectfully let people out. Now, in regards to just understanding transactional, right? I'm big on performance versus purposeful, right? Which is really the same thing. It's just I like the words better. Um, I'm huge on your heart posture. One of the things Charleena said, because the heart never lies. So what this means is one of the things you can do, and this is like a framework that I came up with. One of the things you can do is you can pause and ask yourself, what's my heart posture right now? Maybe your heart posture needs work, and that's okay. Maybe you feel defeated right now. That's okay. Maybe you have to ask yourself, what is my heart posture? How am I giving? What spirit am I giving in? Because I believe in being a cheerful giver. If I'm not giving out a cheer, I got to figure out, why am I doing this? Right? And that's very, very important. And so, because here's the thing, when you perform on anxiety, or when you have a lot of anxiety, thinking like, if I don't do this, then I'll lose them, then you won't be purposeful in your heart posture, where you'll be more aligned, which is why that's very important. Meaning that no matter if you do it or not, you're still worthy and you're still whole. So if you tie the outcome in the effort that you do, then you'll always find yourself performing as opposed to being purposeful. Another thing you need to do is you need to understand your motive. Why am I really doing this? Am I looking to be chosen? Do I want to be seen a certain way?
Right.
Meaning that if there was no guarantee, would you
Mhm.
still be doing this?
Mhm.
And that's a very important thing. Like if there's
Mhm.
just was no guarantee, will I still do this? Because performing gives you validation. Purpose gives you conviction. Like you want to be and that's for people who want to be purposeful, right? Because I understand that everybody there's and what I'm saying is some people motive is to just get what they want
Mhm.
by any means necessary. It doesn't matter who they hurt as long as they get what they want. So I just want to put that out there too. Um, the third one is alignment. Is this consistent with my values? Does it reflect my integrity, my principles? Like, would I be proud to repeat this pattern in my future self? Like, when I look at my future self, is this something I want to keep doing? Right? Does that make sense? Okay. Like, is my giving or my silence violating a boundary that I once prayed for?
Ugh,
Mm.
you're crushing me right now.
Ooh,
And that's
that's
important.
deep.
So,
Mhm.
and with that, performance ignores discernment to preserve
Let me
connection, right?
write
So, in
that
order to
down.
get connection, I'm going to ignore my discernment, right? But purpose honors discernment even when it costs your connection.
Mhm.
So you got to know what
Being true to yourself.
are you aligning this with your values? Another one in exchange. What does reciprocity look like here? Charleena, you mentioned reciprocity. Like, is there a mutual flow of
Mhm.
respect, effort, and
Mhm.
honesty?
Mhm.
Right. And that's
Mhm.
important. And I know, Cara, you mentioned like when you are in a personal, like a close relationship partnership, that's a heavy question you want to ask yourself. I know in the workplace, things might look a little different, but I don't think anybody should be disrespected. I don't care who you work for. I'm
I
sorry.
agree.
I don't know.
I agree as
You
well.
can quit that job, everybody.
I mean, you
You
can
can.
find
It
another.
might
I
be a
mean, the thing
struggle,
is,
but
you can find another job, or you can have an honest conversation with HR. I just believe in doing something. I don't believe in being disrespected because you're getting paid.
Mhm.
Because I know I get on my soapbox about jobs because as I tell people, it's a win-win for both of y'all. They're paying you to do a service. It's not like they just handing you a paycheck. So guess what? They need you just as much as you need them. So we're gonna have a mutual respect here. I believe that wholeheartedly. But anywho, um,
wait a minute. I just want. I'm leaving this on the screen, and I know we're going to have to do another part with you, Tonya. I just want to leave that to. I don't. I'm not trying to cut you off because I want to hear what you have to say next. But
yeah.
performance ignores discernment. I'm so glad because there was another diamond you dropped. I may go back in the recording, look for it later, but I just want you guys to just don't pass by that. Your
That's
discernment
so
is
deep.
talking to you
Mhm.
the entire time that you're out here performing to try to be worth more and to get love and to be accepted and to be thought well of. But that's supposed to happen in here. You need to love you. What do we learn, Tonya? You owe you. It starts with
Hey,
you.
Tanya,
Right.
Tanya, can
Yeah.
you break down that word discernment for
Mm.
us? I think
Mm.
that's really
Oh my
important.
gosh. Look, I'm gonna put it back up here, but I want
Leave
to
it.
honor what Jay said. This is one of my homies. I'm so
Hey,
glad
Jay.
you joined, Jay,
He said
because
I needed
I
to.
I know she I just know that she yes, and we this was for me and you, sis. This was not just if it was for nobody else, it was for us. And now let's go back to this.
Yeah, I want to break
Performance
because that was
ignores
such a
ignores
yeah,
discernment.
that's such a deep
Whew.
statement. I want to break it down.
The whole, and I want you to break down the first part. Performance
Hmm.
ignores discernment, and then the second part where purpose honors discernment even
Even
when it costs you your connection.
Right. So it's
I need
like
a tissue.
everything comes with something. Right? Like when I say transactional, it's an exchange. So even when you decide to say, "Hey, I want to be purposeful," my discernment is telling me that this relationship is something I need to either reposition or completely release altogether. It comes with something. Even doing healing work, it comes with something. Right? That's why I tell people like it's not you in a field of flowers. I mean, you got to make some hard decisions that maybe the old version of you didn't have the courage to do. And so when you start really tapping into your discernment, and when I know you mentioned like what is that, it's really being able to make decisions through a lens of wisdom,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And I would say clarity as well as spiritual awareness.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Not just on emotion or impulse,
Mhm.
right? And I think you need a level of emotional intelligence to do this. I even think you need healthy spiritual grounding to do it, because all spiritual isn't healthy, right? I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
People definitely manipulate. Um, a lot of us are religious, but we're not in relationship with God. And for me, I wanted to be in a relationship with God. I didn't want to be in religion. I divorced that. When I allowed myself to do that, my relationship has gotten stronger and deeper. And I would even say that with my discernment, I would say that it's always been there. I allowed myself to now listen to it, because again, I was betraying myself. So when you go against your discernment, it actually results in self neglect, self betrayal, because
Mm.
now you're going against the very thing that you know you should do or shouldn't be doing, only for you to deal with the aftermath of doing the work. The fact of the matter is that suffering is inevitable, but I realize that I don't want to deal with unnecessary suffering anymore. Like some suffering, just in all honesty, I brought it on myself because of not listening to my discernment. But I have to sit here and unpack. I got to sit here and share the tears or have the bitterness of my heart, all because I ignored the thing that I know I should have never ignored. So I would say discernment is being able to see beneath the surface. It's having the capacity to see beneath the surface. So when people think, oh, this is why I'm so big about when people, kind of come at people who are single. I'm like, you know why you single. This ain't got nothing to do with you not being worthy. You know, like, because that's the thing. People always want to say that, but I'm like, maybe God just wants you single right now. Maybe that's what you supposed to. This is where you're supposed to be. Maybe this is your purpose, your season. Singleness is a gift. It's not a curse. And I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people been taught that. So what they do, they
Mm-hmm.
ignore their discernment because desperation comes in. And when
They don't even know if they
desperation,
want a relationship. Because
right? And
that's
when
that was me 20 years. You don't even know if you want a relationship. You've just been told by society that this is what means that you've made it.
correct.
I'm sorry.
And you
I
don't
didn't mean to cut you
question
off.
it. You don't ask the hard questions like, I talked to my daughter, she's only 18, and we were talking about marriage the other day because her cousin was getting married. And I asked her, what does marriage mean to you? I just was curious on what she was going to say. And, I told her, because I don't know if that's what she wants, but I told her, if you do, and that's your desire, I said, I highly recommend that you find out what marriage means to you. And of course we talked about other things, but anywho, so that would be my definition of discernment, is being able to make decisions through a lens of wisdom, not off impulse,
Okay.
not off an emotional response, just being grounded in the truth, right? And that's very, very important. You make
Oh,
very good decisions that way. It may be hard decisions, but you can look back and say, I'm glad I made that decision.
Mhm.
You never regret making a decision out of discernment, but
Mhm.
you will always regret making a decision out of desperation, period.
mm.
You
Oh
will
my gosh.
always,
I
you
didn't
will
write that down.
always,
I agree. I agree.
You will always regret making a decision out of desperation because it's never going to work,
always.
y'all. It's a 10 out
Mhm.
of 10. It is never going to work. Oh
It's
my
never, because
goodness.
yeah, you will always regret it. And then what happens is now you're battling with regret that now you have to work through,
Mhm. Gotta
because
fix it.
regret will keep you in shame. Regret will
Mm.
keep you in guilt. Regret will make you think, I cannot rewrite a new story, even though that's not true. But we got to work through that
Mhm.
emotion that's going to free you to act on a thing that's going to allow you to move forward.
Mm.
So it's that regret that we got to unpack. I have women in their 50s going through regret, right? When you've been in something 30 years and you're left to rebuild your life. Do you know how much regret is weighing on somebody to think that they can't rebuild a new life? It's hard, so, and sometimes it may not it's so many things we have to unpack with that. But my point is, it's just really understanding the power in your discernment. And again, no disrespect to the fellas, right? Because it's not. I just work with women mostly. Women have a very strong discernment. They do.
Strong. And we ignore it every day.
And
We ignore it.
they do. And they can ignore or overlook it for a lot of reasons, right? And I think it's important to acknowledge that. It can be conditioning, right? It can be the conditioning that we function from. It can be the belief that we've been told, which is why we ignore it, right? Even from a spiritual sense. Don't ask no questions. Don't question God on anything. People don't want you to ask questions and understand God on a deeper level. Of course, you're going to be in spiritual bondage.
And
You know what I
what,
mean?
Tonya?
So it's so many things that come with that, because I want women to know that you're not unintelligent. It's not that you don't know. You are very wise. You know what I mean? Women, when I tell you, we are so detailed. Women, most women are detailed. This is what I'm seeing in mostly 95% of my clients. They're detailed. They cross T's, they dot I's. And yes, some of that can come from perfectionism. Yes. But some of that, I believe, is just a divine thing that we were just built. It's just within us to do, especially because we manage so much. We do a lot. We're managing a home. We're taking care of kids. We're working. You got to have details. We're strategic thinkers. And the problem is that they don't understand that sometimes. And I had a client who bust out in tears one time. This was back in 2020. And we do this assessment, right, to kind of help them understand themselves a lot better. And when she understood herself better, she started crying. And I think she started crying because she knew all along. But when you're with somebody who's completely narcissistic, who gaslights you, who manipulates you for 30 years, you can't even tell if the sky is blue. Because they have manipulated you so much to think that it's orange. And you over here, the sky blue. But because because that's what that type of relationship does to you. It takes away just basic common sense. So I just want to say that to women. Women, you're so detailed. You're so strategic. You think about the 10,000 foot view. You don't think you got discernment when you can think that far ahead, when you already know what's going to happen, when you tell your kids, nope, don't go out with them. Because your discernment is telling you this ain't it. You ain't crazy. You just got to apply that same discernment in this area that you probably haven't been seeing the fruit like you want to see.
And God hasn't given us a spirit of fear. So, because that's a lot of times why we don't want to face the truth, because we have fear. And I also wrote down that because as someone who's coming out of approval addiction, if you don't trust yourself, you need the opinions of others to make decisions. And I'm sure there's somebody else out there who has that as bad as I did. I had to call a council of 5 people to move forward on anything, because I didn't trust that anything in here knew what she was doing. One thing I did, and the 30 years ago, I felt like that disqualified me from being qualified to speak on my own life. So I would just urge everybody, lean into your own discernment and intuition. God is in here and he's telling you all the time, but you don't know how to recognize that voice and trust it. And so you're just out here making decisions based on I don't know what.
Yeah.
But Tonya, listen, I want
you to have a seat at the table of your own life.
I want you to tell everyone how they can find you. I want to put it in the comments. I have to mute while I'm typing, but I want you to tell people how they can find you, because I know you do divorce coaching. However, you might be open to different types of coaching and things like that, and any kind of breakage, that someone is experiencing where they need to kind of rebuild and restore themselves. And so give me that information so that I can put it in the comments here.
Sure. You can find me at TonyaCarter.com. My Instagram is Tonya Carter. No, I am Tonya Carter is Instagram. And then YouTube, Tonya Carter, Facebook, Tonya Carter. So I'm pretty much all things Tonya Carter. Yeah. So yeah, you can find me there. I did want to give this last part of the framework that I mentioned because maybe this can be helpful for somebody else too. Um, where I talked about pause, really asking yourself what's your heart posture, motive, why am I really doing this, alignment, is this consistent with my values? And then I did talk about exchange, like what does reciprocity look like here? Right. And that was where I stopped at. And I want to kind of highlight that a little bit because it's important to ask, am I the only one doing the emotional heavy lifting? That's very, very important. Like, are both of us contributing in ways that align with who we are, not just what we can do? Remember, performative gives to prove worth, purpose gives to participate in reciprocity. And the last one is renewal, understanding what is the fruit of this relationship, right? Do I feel drained or do I feel developed after the exchange? You know what I'm saying? Because you can have an exchange. You be like, "Child, I'm so tired of these folk." You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta check that, right? Does this relationship
Mhm.
challenge me towards growth or guilt, or does it make me smaller or more self-aware?
Mm.
Right? Because purpose produces depletion. I mean, performance produces depletion. Purpose produces development. So before you give, ask yourself, is this an act of love or a plea to be loved? And that's just a very important question to ask. And here's the truth. If it is, that's a win because you have now developed a level of self-awareness to know. Now you need to also maybe do, when you've been this way, you've created a level of normalcy in your life. So you can get on a live like this, which is very helpful, by the way. But what happens is we will always default to what's familiar, even if we know it's not healthy. And so, in other words, act on that self awareness. It may look like sitting with a coach. It might look like sitting with a therapist. It may look like sitting with both. It may look like sitting with yourself. It may look like sitting with God. But whatever that is, let's build on that momentum, right? Because you don't want to keep saying the same story, right? You don't want your story to be the same, your narrative to be the same over and over again, right? Because that's doing something to your heart, right? Like you can't even be all of who God called you to be when you're functioning from that space. So that would just be like I just wanted to add that part as well.
Okay, give me that. Purpose gives to prove worth. Performance gives to prove worth. Purpose
Mhm.
gives to.
Participate in reciprocity. Yeah.
Okay, I don't type as fast as I used to, and I have to type on mute, or else all you would hear is clickety clackety
Click, click,
clackety
click.
clack. Listen, Tonya, I'm not going to take any more of your evening. Charleena, have you enjoyed having Tonya here with us tonight? We got into
Amazing.
and I'm so glad we
Amazing.
ran over because you preheated that oven. You know what I'm saying? And then this last little bit, man, I just, sis, we've got to get together. I mean, I'm just
So
so
she's in
grateful.
Atlanta. You're in
She's in the
Atlanta. There is
we
yes.
no excuse. You
we done
have
said
no
this so many
excuse.
times.
No, 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 no. We're
No,
going to
We
put a
no,
date on the
yeah,
calendar.
you
we
need
done,
to be
yeah.
you need to be intentional.
You're
You need to
absolutely
make
right,
it
Charleena.
happen. You got to like set a date.
But you know what? This is the time, as such as this, because Tanya has come so far in her growth, and I went through a very long toxic phase myself, and I don't think that. Let me say it this way, Tanya. I don't think that I was worthy or ready for
Hmm.
a real friendship with Tanya years ago because she's
You see my
you know
face?
I'm telling you in terms of she's going to cut through all the layers. And I don't think that I would have been capable of being a better friend to her years ago when we first met, because we knew each other in BU, but we weren't like keying and doing that kind of stuff. And I feel now like I could be in a very different friendship. Let me put it this way, even more clearly. I think had we gotten closer years ago, I would have done something to everybody. Don't have the patience of Job with me like you do, Charlene. I think Tanya would have been like, she got some stuff going on. I'm
Actually, you know what? I don't, because I don't, number one, I don't go deep with someone unless they want me to. Right? I learned to not impose my advice on people, and that was hard for me because I don't like to see people, hurting themselves, or I don't like to see people do things that I know is hurtful to them. But I wouldn't
No, I mean, I think
necessarily.
my energy would have been hard for you. I feel like I'm in a better place now. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, I don't. I guess when I talk to people, I don't know. My expectation is not for you to always match the energy, right? I don't know. Now I will say that if I know somebody is in a space where it's real heavy, there may be some distance I create, not out of, but I would never like be like, I can't deal with them. Like, I just think the way the world likes to do that, I don't like it. Like, I'm just, because we're all human, we're all going through something. We all have seasons and rough patches. And so I just want to, I don't want to move like that. I don't ever want to be like that.
Hmm.
I
Well,
don't
I'm gonna
like
take
that.
you up on that, sis. But my energy is a lot better now. So we're gonna get a date. I'm gonna let you know, Charlene. I'm gonna be intentional, and I'm gonna get together with Tanya, and we're gonna have some chats and stuff like that. We're gonna get on the. Hopefully, we can do it this year. My calendar is very open, so we'll see what you have
Oh
available.
yeah,
But I
girl. We
I'm
we going
going
into
to
the holiday
hold,
season.
I'm going to
so
hold you to accountable.
Charlene said,
okay, mom.
y'all gonna get together.
Okay, mom. Look at her. Now I want you to know, Charlena, look our age. She is not our age, honey. She's not our age. She's
Charlene
got 10
looks
she's got 10 years on me, but she looks 10 years younger than me. It's so
Whatever.
unfair.
she
Okay.
looks
Whatever.
amazing.
Thank
Yeah,
you, but
she's
She
beautiful.
whatever.
Yeah,
does. And
you're not even seeing her in her glory.
Cara be traveling too though. I be like, Cara be out in these, would you be hiking and stuff, or you be camping, or
Camping. Those are my camping buddies. We're on tonight. I was so happy to see them and that they actually still want to listen to me talk as much talking as I do.
how much you got to say?
You know what I'm saying?
But I'm gonna be
So,
honest with you. I've always admired you, Cara. I mean, even I
Aw,
remember when we met I know we was at P7D. Remember that in
yep,
2017?
17.
And we all took that disc assessment, and girl, we were high D's. And I still remember you asking Chris the question about, being that angry, how we're perceived of being this angry Black woman when we're really
It was
just very
CJ.
assertive in what we say. Okay, it was
Yes.
I thought it was
You
Chris
remember what
Daniel.
it was CJ. No, I know Chris was there, rest his soul. But you
Yeah,
remember what CJ
yeah.
said to me? This is for everybody, ladies. I said I'm assertive, whatever. I don't know how to I basically was asking him, Tanya, how do I dim my light? Because I'm
Basically,
too
yeah.
this. And his answer to me was, if you gonna be a boss, be a boss.
Right. And so I've
He
always loved Cara's I got something to say mentality. So that's why sometimes again we may think, I'm like, no, I've always liked that in you. I think that's your secret sauce. I think that's your superpower. You know what I mean? And so even with my high D, Chris, I struggled with that too, because I got something to say, And Chris was like, I need you to be who you are. And it's like, because I used to think, oh, because girl, I stayed in trouble at school, talks too much. That's when they used to give you conduct. And I had U's in conduct, talks too much. I always got something to say. Stayed in trouble because I always had something to say. Not realizing that was also the gift that God gave me. And that was the gift of communication. Now, did I have to refine it and evolve in it? Absolutely, with training and all that. But it's just what it is. I got something to say.
Mhm.
So, but I want to say I've always admired that about you, and I've always respected you for that. So, I mean, you just never know who's paying attention.
I will say this, and this is why I resonate so much with you guys. I'm authentic all the time, and people use that word and they're really not. And I think you just have to say, I'm just saying they do, but I am. And I've learned that people who aren't, they can't stand it when they see that you're able to be who you really are and you're not doing the pretenses or whatever. It really
Mhm.
bothers their spirit. But
Mhm.
whoever you are, all you can do is be true to yourself. You'll be absolutely miserable until you just walk in your own truth. But that's why you need those boundaries so that you feel you can do it safely, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
but I listen, we need to do another conversation. I will get with you and see when you are available. There's so many things we could talk about. You are a treasure and a joy, Tonya. I love you. I love all the work that you're
Thank
doing.
you.
When we get together for our little lunch, brunch, dinner, whatever, we're going to text Charlene a picture because she's going to ask me, by the way. She'll be like, did you talk to Tonya yet? Did you go to dinner? You said you were going to be intentional.
Mhm.
She's my
That's right. I
mom in a
sure
way.
will.
So,
I sure
Do you
so,
will.
still do? Do you are you do you still do plant based or are you?
I can. I'm actually about to eat a plant-based meal right when we're finished with this. I'm gonna have a
No, I was
salad
just
and
curious because I know you were
yeah,
heavy in it.
I was heavy. That's a whole nother
Mhm.
thing because that's some of that was genuine. It was all genuine, but it was a phase. I put it that way. I don't want to say it wasn't genuine because I was very into it at that time. But now I'm just in a phase where I don't want to restrict myself. I feel like a conservative religion and all these things, I had myself very tightly wound for a long period of time. And so I've just been in this phase now of just exploring what I like and what I want to do and not really being restrictive with myself, but I have been feeling like super led back to either high plant based or something like that. But I don't know that I want to be in a rigid place with it. So
Okay, I
yeah.
understand that.
That
No,
just
I
led to me
understand
eating a
that.
lot of French fries. Okay. They didn't have anything plant based. I would just eat more fries. So I don't want to do that anymore either. But we're going to get together and listen. I thank you so much for your time. I thank everybody who watched and joined in tonight. Make sure you are following Tonya Carter wherever she is, where she can be found. I said her IG was I am Tonya Carter. Make sure you follow her, reach out to her for her coaching services, check out her website and everything she has available. Listen, you can invest in this. If you don't have a lack mentality, if you like what you heard, get in touch with her and get more information. I want to thank my co-host Charleena Anita for joining as well. And we'll be back again next Tuesday. Love you guys so much and have a great rest of the day and week, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, have a good one.